Hello and welcome. Departures Capital is a paid content platform and may have received compensation from the companies featured in this content. This material has been distributed on behalf of those companies and may include forward-looking statements as well as technical information reviewed by a qualified person. Please refer to the description below for our disclaimer and visit our website at departurescapital.com for the full disclaimer and disclosure details. What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital, and I'm here with Matt Simpson, CEO of Brazil Potash. Pleasure to have you on today, Matt. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on, Aaron.
Yes, excited to be chatting. So this video was brought to you on behalf of Brazil Potash. And now that we've got you on, can you tell us a bit more about Brazil Potash and your vision for the company, Matt?
Brazil is one of the world's largest exporters of agricultural goods, Aaron. They export about $167 billion a year. But the country's Achilles heel is that they import 85% of their fertilizer, including 98% of their potash, when potentially the second biggest basin in the world is sitting in their backyard being developed by Brazil Potash. So simply because we're in Brazil and everyone else is located about 12,000 to 20,000 kilometers away in Canada, Russia, Belarus, Germany, Israel, our cost to extract, process, and deliver this essential nutrient with no substitute is less than just the transportation cost alone for everyone else.
Very interesting. I didn't know that. So Brazil Potash recently made headlines with its progress on the Otaz Potash project. Can you share the latest developments and what milestones investors should be watching for in the coming months?
So Brazil Potash is now fully permitted for construction of our project, and we've actually started some of the early works on site, such as the vegetation management type work, drilled a couple water wells. And moving ahead, I think it's going to be a really exciting year for investors. We did announce a non-binding memorandum with a company called Keytrade, which is a Swiss-based trader that has a very large presence in Brazil for 1 million tons of offtake. So our expectation is to convert that MOU into a binding contract in the near future, and that would be in addition to the existing offtake contract that we have with Amaggi, which is one of the biggest soybean farmers in the world. And then finally, we expect a third contract to also come into play in the near future, which would have us at about 2 million of our 2.2 million tons under long-term contract. The reason that's important, Aaron, is that banks and export credit agencies that will loan us the money to build the project want to know who's going to buy your product, what's the price, and are they creditworthy? So those are pretty important milestones. We also have had some good discussions with groups on carving out the 200 million that's going to be required to build our high voltage power line. This is the only major infrastructure at site. And we're talking to some infrastructure funds and power transmission companies right now. So I think that's going to be something pretty interesting.
Lots of things to look forward to. So with global concerns around food security and fertilizer supply chains, how do you see Brazil Potash's role evolving with both the domestic Brazilian market and the broader international agricultural sector?
So when we look at Brazil, it's a really interesting country because Brazil has amongst the highest amount of land suitable to grow food. They have the highest amount of fresh water in the world, and they have a year-round climate where they can grow 3 crops a year. So unlike countries in say North America or Europe, you only typically do about 1 crop a year. In Brazil, they never stop growing. They just rotate from soybean to cotton to corn. And that's why, as the world continues to grow its population, we also have a growing middle class that wants more protein in their diet. Today, Brazil already feeds 1 in 10 plates of food, and it's only going to improve over time.
Wow. So, potash is a critical input for agriculture.
What potash does, Aaron, is it strengthens the stem of a plant to make it more resilient to stress. So if you even just think recently how crazy the weather has been, where we'll see 20-degree temperature changes within even just a couple days, or in other parts of the world, you'll have flooding followed by drought, all within short periods of time. All this causes stress, and when plants are stressed, they don't grow very well. So potash helps plants grow through or survive those stresses, and that's why it's so important.
So potash is a critical input for agriculture, and demand is expected to rise with global population growth. How is Brazil Potash positioning itself to meet this demand sustainably, especially given the environmental sensitivities surrounding the project?
Well, the concern with potash is an oligopoly. You have 80% of the potash today that comes from Canada, Russia, and Belarus. And it's quite concerning to think that, roughly 42% of the world's potash is effectively controlled by Russia. So we would never want to find ourselves waking up one day and not having access to a critical nutrient to grow our food. And then when we look at Brazil, Brazil's the world's largest net importer of potash, about 22% of market share. This is a 20 to $30 billion a year market is into Brazil. And Brazil's market is growing at 6.8% a year, which is 4 times the rest of the world. So having a domestic source of potash in Brazil is going to help not only with Brazil's food security, but also global food security.
So, for current and prospective investors, what makes Brazil Potash a compelling opportunity today compared to other resource development companies in the fertilizer sector?
Well, with the fertilizer sector, much like with any bulk commodity, transportation ends up being a far greater cost than your cost of extracting and processing. And specifically for potash delivered into Brazil, most of the importers spend about 2.5 times on transportation as they do compared to the extraction and processing. And simply because we're in Brazil and we're only 8 kilometers away from a major inland river that connects to the largest farming region in the country, it's called Mato Grosso State. We'll have downside price protection where it's not possible for the price of potash to go below about $280 to $290 a ton compared to our cost to produce of 79. So in that worst case scenario, we're making about 600 million a year for a product that people have no choice but to buy because we all need to eat for a very, very long life.
So, Matt, you've been leading Brazil Potash through complex regulatory, logistical, and stakeholder challenges. What have been your key leadership takeaways so far, and how do they shape your vision for the company's next phase?
So in our case, the project is located in a environmentally sensitive part of the world. It's in the Amazonas state of Brazil. And that leads to a lot of fear mongering sometimes by NGOs. And it's important to get ahead of that and make sure people have the facts. So we spent a lot of effort working with local media, with the local indigenous population, making sure that people have the facts. And the facts are this project is located on cattle farm land. It's not impacting any primary rainforest. It's an underground mine with dry stack tailings. And really what you're digging up, Aaron, is salt. It's basically potash is formed by failed oceans. So you're really just separating potassium chloride, which is your potash, from sodium chloride, which is salt that you'd put on your food or that we put on the road to melt ice. And all of that salt is dry stacked and put back underground. So there's no chemicals used in processing, and the footprint is quite small.
Well, thank you for all that information, Matt. I definitely learned something today. And, best of luck. Seems like 2025 is going to be a busy year for you. So, look forward to having you back on for more updates.
Excellent. Thanks, Aaron.